This is basically just City of New York versus Homer Simpson, that episode. Except like 7 years later and much, much less funny.
That's so odd you say that, because by coincidence, right before watching this, we had watched Beavis and Butthead Do America, which has the same plot right down to the stolen chip.
My name is George, and with me is Chris, and today we are talking about the 2004 Olsen twins movie, New York Minute.
This would be the last time the twins appeared together in a film. No, they did a theatrical movie in like 1995, and then between that movie and this movie, they just like churned out direct-to-DVD movies, kids movies, while also building a fashion empire.
So that was basically their target audience. It's like the home video babysitter for the kids.
Exactly right, and that's I think, as I'm sure we'll touch on, that's why this movie was so awkwardly caught between that kind of thing and like a theatrically released comedy with sex jokes and stuff.
I haven't seen any of their other work besides this one, but clearly the third sister is the one that got all the acting skills.
It does seem that way, yeah.
Elizabeth Olsen is a much better actress than these two.
Yeah. There's definitely a difference. Although, to be fair, I mean, these two trailblazed and made the family multimillionaires, so maybe maybe she got better acting lessons.
What?
By a minute in, we've got our first of many, many nude Olsen twin moments. And where the gag is that she's shown up for her speech naked. Fair enough. That's something that is a classic trope. But at the same time, as the Olsen twins appear naked, but covered, but naked, over and over and again, an unpleasant feeling starts to build about what the movie is doing.
Was Jack Osborne and Simple Plan really that cool? Were they ever cool?
There's the double weirdness in this movie where there's this extremely obvious, cynical, like, teen product placement. Like, these cynical attempts to appeal to what's cool. But also, they're not things that are cool, and they're not things that seem to have anything to do with the Olsen twins in my mind.
Yeah.
Obviously, neither of us knows very much about the Olsen twins. But I'm with you. Jack Osborne and Simple Plan don't seem to relate to them, and they certainly don't seem to be edgy or interesting or...
Yeah, and then, like, if you're gonna have celebrity
to
cameos, why of all people Jack Osborne? It gave me the Evanescence in Daredevil vibe. It's like that's what like dudes in their 60s in suits think is
right.
Cool.
You know, I'm so glad you made a comparison to another movie of ours that we've watched, because I just wanted to say that this movie combines a shocking number of the like terrible elements of all of the terrible movies that we've watched so far. Like. First and foremost, there's the teen sexualization creep factor of Kissing Booth. But there's also, like, there's the unfocused and, like, scattershot comedy and the ineffective gross-out gags of Airplane Mode. There's the hackneyed family drama of Moonfall. There's the terribly handled racial comedy of Charlie's Angels. There's the rich people with a complete lack of imagination, like 365 Days. And then, weirdly, even in the start, there's a random snake, just like Hard Ticket to Hawaii. Although, here the snake is just to get an Olsen naked again. But yeah.
About 14 minutes in, right here on the train scene, I realized I hate them both. And I think the main thing is that the writer of this movie has mistaken obnoxiousness with being quirky or funny. And it is the equivalent of bad writers mistaking being an asshole with being a badass. Right. Like, and I was just off the top of my head, you know, like, the dude is funny, but not obnoxious. Regina George is funny and an asshole, but not obnoxious. Donkey is funny, but because he's obnoxious only to Shrek, not the audience.
Right.
These two are obnoxious to everybody.
My one big thing for this movie all the way through was that movies like this are ordinarily driven by the characters of the central duo. The Olsen twins do not have anything like that. There's no character that grounds the movie so the movie can be built around them. Like, it is a star vehicle, but it's not a vehicle for anything, because the Olsen twins aren't anything in and of themselves. They do this thing again where one's a rocker and one's a aspiring politician or whatever, but we don't really believe that that's coming from any like real personality, and none of the jokes can like glom onto that. There are very few jokes that have anything to do with the characters that they supposedly have, and it just ends up being a random collection of gags from other movies, and none of them make sense because we don't really know where we're supposed to be looking at them from.
Which reminds me, if you're interested in listening to the full-length discussion of this episode, you can find it on our Patreon. The link is on screen and in the description down below. If you go over there, you will get the entire recording in an audio format like a podcast. Check it out, support us, help us keep doing this. We really appreciate it. Anyways.
The kind of the fundamental thing in drama is that characters desire things, and that desire leads them on towards something. And these characters do both have a story. One of them wants to get her demo to the A&R guys at a Simple Plan music video shoot. Which, again, sounds very much like it was come up with by a bunch of old producers. The other one is headed to do a speech to hopefully get a fellowship to study somewhere. I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway.
Some affluent school, yeah.
Yeah. They do both have desires. They have goals, I should say. But other than having those goals, the desires that are leading them in those directions, like to be a politician and a rocker, don't drive any of the rest of the action. This entire movie, nothing happens because of what the twins do. Literally everything the whole way through just kind of happens to them, and they drift through the movie reacting to everything. They drift through the movie getting help from ethnic stereotypes while being hunted by other ethnic stereotypes, and they just kind of have this like blithe assurance that everything is going to work out for them, which of course it does. But there's never a moment where you see one of them like want something and go to get it. You're just kind of watching gags happen to them.
Benny will be there soon, Ma.
Benny, either you talk in Chinese or you speak in English, but enough with the accent.
I'm sorry, Ma.
I really hope Conan spent years making fun of him for his participation in this movie. Yeah, so Andy Richter spends the whole movie doing a really bad quote-unquote Asian accent.
And the setup is that he was
adopted
and raised by a Chinese family. Therefore, he speaks
in a Chinese accent.
Yeah.
I will give the movie credit though, that I think they tried to make fun of the fact that he has a Chinese accent because his adopted Chinese mother calls him out on it and saying, "Stop doing that accent."
Yes.
So maybe it's supposed to be a meta joke.
I was unclear about what any joke was supposed to be, but the Andy Richter part is the weirdest part. Ebert has a great review of this movie, and what he says about Andy Richter is it's the kind of character that's so pointless and stupid that some producer somewhere along the line probably said, well, how about we give him an accent? Well, so what's the deal? Because I feel confident that this movie is racist in other ways. What is this? Is it racist?
What is the black-owned barbershop called?
Is it House of Bling? What's her Big Cheryl's House of Bling?
Oh my fucking god. They walked into that place, and again, every single stereotype is in there at the same time. We got the quote-unquote Big Mama owner, right?
Big Cheryl herself.
Yeah, we got there was an actual woman in a generic African garb.
Yep.
The stereotype gay black guy with a tiny little dog throwing out one-liners.
Yeah, it is, again, it's this movie with these two young, rich white girls who kind of drift around New York and run into every possible stereotype. All the stereotypes work out in their favor, whether that's like, it turns out that if, they do martial arts better than the fake Chinese guy. They're like, they fit right in at the black barbershop, and they have they get the black cred there. It's a weird kind of like power fantasy for little white girls. It's slowly, by the time we got to the black barbershop, I was finding it outright creepy. The way this movie was just a parade of ethnic stereotypes. And it's not just because the stereotypes were in the movie. It just felt particularly odd to have these two teen performers who were beloved by a bunch of tween girls choose to do this for their movie, of all things. It's surprising, I felt.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The scene concludes with the entire barbershop, quote unquote, dancing with the twins in like the most horrendous, like generic, this must be what, what quote unquote these people like.
Yeah.
And then like vague attempts at twerking, some vague butt shots, and it's just like,
The entirety of the black barbershop is just so happy that these two white girls are here. And they just spring into action to help them for free. I pity the 13-year-old girl who saw this movie and was like, oh, I'm going to rush out to a black barbershop so that it's like this for me. I suspect this is not the experience in real life.
yeah, it had to be that weird fantasy, you're right, of like, if I walk into a place, I'm the main character, and everyone will applaud me.
What's up with this fool? White people are crazy.
The joke in the barber shop is that they're helped out for free. The joke in the gas station run by a brown man is that one of the Olsen twins the prissy Olsen twin has to go into the bathroom, and the bathroom's really gross. That's the extent of the joke there. The other half of the joke is that the rocker Olsen twin just like puts a bunch of stuff that they're going to buy on the counter and starts eating this guy's food. And then it turns out they have no money. So they just run away, essentially stealing his food. Which again is supposed to be funny. that these rich girls go to a gas station and just steal food. It's bad.
and the Chinese lady is not only a dragon lady, but clearly a triad, of course.
Right. Yeah, so Eugene Levy, the joke is that, he's the character from Ferris Bueller, basically, chasing them on when they skip school.
But just creepy, because Ferris Bueller, at least, is the principal trying to catch his students skipping school. It makes sense in the world. This is just a creepy old man following two young women.
So this may or may
them.
not be Eugene Levy's fault. Here's what I read. Here's what he said. As he was scripted, Max was written a little on the broader side, with him going undercover and constantly showing up in different outfits. I suggested making him plainclothes and giving him an office in his basement. He doesn't make much money. He always wanted to be a cop and never made it. That grounds the character, and that's what I like in whatever I'm involved with. There has to be some sort of emotional grounding. So I took two things from that. The first is that kind of makes sense because when Eugene Levy first showed up, I admit I was like, oh, here's the one character that has a joke about him. Because the joke is he's a truant officer who obviously he imagines himself as this badass because he always wanted to be a cop. So he takes his truancy officing super serious, and he acts like he's a tough police detective, saying like 5 to 10 and stuff. And then people are like, hours of detention? That's the type of joke you can expect from New York Minute. But it is a joke. It's a character that like is built around a joke, at least. You can see what the comedic concept is. Whereas Andy Richter and everyone else, I'm just sort of left confused. But on the other hand, as you already said, George, because they made him a more grounded character, it makes it a little creepier.
Yeah,
that he's chasing the girls around.
Because on paper, what you described there as a character makes sense. It's a very simplistic character, but on paper, at least it makes sense. The execution, what ends up happening is what you have is a middle-aged man who couldn't pay for rent, live in a dark, dank room with photos of what is essentially underage, just at the edge of underage girls on his walls. Like, he has a crazy wall of just these twins.
Yeah.
And he just goes around the city stalking them. Speaking of uncomfortable, there's the other scene in the subway of the twins versus Andy Richter. And they choose to speak Chinese, Mandarin specifically. Needless to say, I did not understand what the hell they were saying, because it wasn't Mandarin that they were speaking. I could tell that they were trying to say it, but it wasn't. And it just made me think, why do movies do this? Like, why have your actors speak Mandarin terribly when it doesn't add anything to the character or the story? Because it makes the scene really, really cringy for the most populous ethnicity in the world.
Yeah.
While your intended audience for this movie, would they even give a shit? Because when you have actors or characters whose primary language is a Latin-based language try to speak an Eastern Hemisphere language, it sounds really bad when they don't know how to say it. It's incredibly unintelligible.
Right.
It just sounds like gibberish, right? If you're gonna do it, even if it's just to have fun, then you need a good dialect coach and a language coach. Like a really good example of this is Don Cheadle in Rush Hour 2.
Really?
His character speaks Cantonese in that movie, and it's really fucking good. Like, I can fully understand him without subtitles.
Man, that guy.
點解你會同 7-Eleven 一齊嘅？
All right. So I mean, do we have any more things to talk about for this segment of minutes too long in New York? How to shorten it?
Go full self-aware and do the Olsen twins' first big theatrical release. Do a straight-up spoof of The Parent Trap. So take an iconic twins movie and have them do like a spoofy take on it that's like a little more crude, a little more adult, a little more edgy, a little more racist, and have them just poke fun at the genre that made them famous. Have them do a self-aware take on the tween girl movies of the 90s. So I have no idea what would be involved in a spoof of The Parent Trap. Like, I guess maybe they are awful and end up breaking up their parents instead of getting them back together. I have no idea. Because what I feel like they got stuck with was just kind of doing an upgrade of their direct-to-video movies and adding in a bunch of random stuff from classic Hollywood comedies. It might have been more fun to instead just go fully into playing with their image more.
Okay. I mean, yeah, actually, to add that, they should just play themselves in at that point.
Interesting. It's a spoof of The Parent Trap where the Olsen twins were separated at birth. This was a low point of CineCringe for me.
All right. We found the bottom. Can we find a basement below? Okay, all right. Well, that's it for this week's episode. So next week, there's going to be no episode because I'm moving and I don't have a computer in between to record and edit. So we're going to skip 1 week. And when we come back, we're going to go for something that's even bigger budget and slicker, but also famously or infamously terrible. And that is Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls.
We got tired of waiting for a trailer for Indiana Jones 5 to come out. So we're just doing it.
All right, that's it for us. We are done. And and like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
I'm not going to do a sign off from this movie because I don't want to do an Andy Richter voice.